Imagine standing on a vast plain where the ground trembles beneath your feet. A shadow blots out the sun, and there, towering above, is a Tyrannosaurus Rex, jaws wide, eyes locked on you. It's a terrifying scene, isn't it? But what if I told you that in the grand scheme of history, dinosaurs were not the scariest creatures to ever walk or swim on Earth? Hold on to that thought for a moment. I know it's hard to believe. After all, we've grown up with dinosaurs as the quintessential image of terror. From their gargantuan size to their razor-sharp teeth and claws, they have been the stuff of nightmares, starring in Hollywood blockbusters and filling the imaginations of millions. We look at their fossilized remains and think, this is as bad as it gets. But trust me, it's not. Now let's dive a little deeper. Picture a time far older than the dinosaurs, where the oceans teemed with predators so massive and so nightmarish that even a T-Rex might have fled in terror. Picture skies filled not with pterodactyls but with enormous flying reptiles that could snatch you up in an instant, and on land, beasts so ferocious that their very existence seems like something out of a horror movie. You're intrigued, aren't you? Stay with me. The real nightmares of our ancient past didn't have names you'd recognize from a textbook. They didn't roar through jungles of ferns or leave fossilized footprints that draw millions of tourists every year. No, these creatures were something far more terrifying, lurking in the deep, hunting in the skies, and hiding in the shadows of Earth's forgotten history. Let's begin with the oceans, the cradle of life. Here, before the dinosaurs ever existed, colossal sea monsters ruled the depths. The prehistoric oceans were a place of pure chaos, a survival of the fittest that makes today's great white shark look like a playful puppy. These waters were dominated by predators so enormous that they would make you re-evaluate what fear really means. And believe me when I say, it wasn't just about size. It was about their ferocity, their unrelenting hunger, and their ability to strike without warning. But here's where things take a darker turn. These creatures weren't just mindless hunters. No, they had evolved into the ultimate killing machines, finely tuned by millions of years of evolution to dominate every inch of their environment. Some could swallow a person whole with a single gulp. Others, with jaws strong enough to crush bone like it was paper, could rip their prey apart in mere moments. And if that wasn't enough, their speed, was terrifying. In the blink of an eye, they could appear from the murky waters, launching themselves at their prey like a missile. And let's not forget the skies. If you thought flying dinosaurs like Pteranodon were frightening, wait until you meet the creatures that came before them. Imagine flying monsters so large, their wings blocked out the sun, soaring silently through the sky, ready to plummet to Earth at a moment's notice. Their talons could tear flesh with ease, and their beaks were sharp enough to pierce through the thickest hides. These creatures were the undisputed kings of their domain. But what makes them truly terrifying isn't just their size or strength. It's that they were survivors. They thrived in a world far more hostile, far more dangerous than the one the dinosaurs eventually ruled. In their time, Earth was a planet in chaos, a planet where survival meant more than just being big and mean. It meant being relentless. It meant being able to adapt to constant change, to seize every opportunity for a kill, to outwit prey that was just as dangerous as they were. And now, here comes the twist, the part that might just keep you up tonight. These creatures, these monsters of the past, didn't die off because they couldn't hack it in the wild. No, they were survivors. They could have thrived for millions of more years, but they didn't. Something happened. Something so massive, so catastrophic, that even the most powerful of them couldn't withstand it. A mystery that we're only just beginning to understand. But what if I told you that some of them didn't die? That deep beneath the waves, in the unexplored recesses of our planet's oceans, something still stirs. That in the darkest, deepest caves where sunlight has never touched, there might be creatures who remember a world before dinosaurs, creatures who are far older and far hungrier than anything we've ever imagined. As you listen to this, I want you to keep that thought in mind. Maybe the scariest part of our planet's history isn't behind us. Maybe, just maybe, the real nightmares are still out there, waiting. And who knows? Maybe one day we'll find out exactly what they are. This opening establishes a strong, suspenseful hook by teasing the possibility that the most terrifying creatures might still exist, setting up a sense of mystery and fear while drawing the audience into the idea that these ancient animals were even scarier than dinosaurs. When you think of the ocean today, you might picture its tranquil, endless blue expanse, or imagine swimming alongside dolphins, rays, and coral reefs, perhaps even contemplating the rare sight of a whale shark. But take a moment to reflect on the oceans of the past, deep in the throes of prehistory. They were not the peaceful sanctuaries we romanticize today. No, the prehistoric oceans were chaotic, terrifying, and ruled by creatures whose sheer size, speed, and ferocity would make even the most dangerous predators of today look harmless. Imagine, for instance, diving into these ancient waters, not knowing what lies beneath. The sunlight filters down, illuminating the surface for just a few meters, but beyond that, nothing but dark, unexplored depths. It's quiet, almost eerily so. The silence itself feels heavy, as though the ocean is holding its breath. And then, without warning, you feel a shift. The water seems to pulse around you, vibrating with an unseen energy. Something is moving. Something big. Your heart races as the shadows below you shift. But before you can even begin to process the movement, a colossal shape explodes from the deep, rising faster than your mind can comprehend. And there, in that split second of realization, you catch a glimpse of it. Teeth. Teeth the size of kitchen knives, sharp, jagged, and ready to tear through flesh and bone. In that brief moment, you understand. This is no ordinary predator. This is Megalodon. Forget everything you think you know about sharks. The great white shark, which many consider the apex predator of today's oceans, pales in comparison to the monster that is Megalodon. Stretching up to 60 feet long, about the size of a modern school bus, this ancient shark was not just the king of the seas. It was the undisputed emperor of the prehistoric oceans, an apex predator that had no rivals. Its jaws could open wide enough to swallow a human whole, and the force of its bite could crush the skull of a whale like a tin can. Megalodon didn't just hunt, it terrorized. It ruled the ancient seas with an iron fin, and no creature, whether swimming, diving, or floating at the surface, was safe from its insatiable hunger. Picture this: you're in a small boat, drifting over deep waters. Suddenly, without a sound, your boat is lifted from beneath. For a split second you are airborne, and then the realization hits you. There's something enormous underneath you, something with the power to make you feel insignificant. But Megalodon wasn't the only monster in these ancient oceans. Far from it. Lurking in the deep just below the range of human sight, swam creatures even more bizarre, more grotesque, and just as deadly. Creatures like Dunkleosteus, a prehistoric fish that roamed the seas 360 million years ago, long before the dinosaurs ever came into existence. At first glance, Dunkleosteus might not seem as terrifying as Megalodon. After all, it wasn't as large, reaching only about 30 feet in length. But size isn't everything. What made Dunkleosteus a nightmare was its armor-plated head and its terrifying jaw structure. This beast didn't have teeth in the traditional sense. Instead, it had bone-crushing, razor-sharp plates that functioned like a guillotine, snapping shut with unbelievable speed and force. Its bite was so powerful that it could shear through bone and armor with ease, meaning no prey was truly safe from Dunkleosteus. Imagine swimming through ancient waters, feeling relatively safe when suddenly a shadow closes in. There is no warning, no chance to flee, just a crushing snap of bone and a rush of red as the water around you turns into a violent swirl of death. And while Megalodon and Dunkleosteus ruled with brute force, they were not the only horrors of these ancient seas. Picture something more serpentine, something that could wind through the water silently, its long sinuous body undulating like a living ribbon of destruction. Enter Mosasaurus, a prehistoric marine reptile that could grow up to 50 feet long, its long jaws filled with conical teeth designed for gripping and tearing flesh. Unlike the slow, lumbering image you might associate with large marine creatures, Mosasaurus was fast, striking with the agility of a crocodile, but with far more deadly precision. What made Mosasaurus so terrifying wasn't just its size or speed, but its behavior. Unlike modern marine predators, which often hunt alone or in small groups, some paleontologists believe that mosasaurs may have hunted in packs, using coordinated attacks to bring down even the largest prey. Imagine being a prehistoric turtle, thinking you've escaped the jaws of a predator, only to be surrounded by a pack of mosasaurs. their sleek bodies gliding effortlessly through the water as they close in from every angle. There is no escape, only the inevitable moment when those jaws clamp down and drag you into the abyss. And then there were the pliosaurs, the true sea monsters of the Jurassic period. Picture a predator with the body of a crocodile, but magnified to terrifying proportions. Pliosaurs, like the infamous Liopleurodon, could reach up to 40 feet long, their paddle-like limbs allowing them to move with surprising grace and speed for creatures of their size. Their enormous crocodile-like jaws were packed with razor-sharp teeth, designed to puncture and crush the bones of their prey in a single bite. These creatures didn't just hunt for survival, they hunted for dominance, bringing down prey that was nearly their size. But what truly sets the terror of the prehistoric oceans apart from the dinosaurs isn't just the size or ferocity of the predators. It's the environment itself. The ancient seas were a hostile world, a place where survival was a daily struggle, not just against predators, but against the elements. The oceans of prehistory were volatile, shifting landscapes of underwater mountains, deep trenches, and constantly moving tectonic plates. Volcanic eruptions spewed clouds of ash and magma into the water, making visibility low and the atmosphere toxic. Tsunamis could strike without warning, dragging everything in their path down into the depths. And in the midst of this chaos, the predators thrived. Imagine a place where the very water you swim in could boil from volcanic activity, where the ground beneath you could crack open and swallow you whole, and where, even if you survived these natural disasters, you were never more than a heartbeat away from being hunted by creatures who had perfected the art of killing. There was no escape in these oceans. Every shadow could hide a predator. Every ripple in the water could be the last thing you ever saw. And it wasn't just the large creatures you had to fear. Prehistoric oceans were filled with smaller but no less dangerous threats. Take the Eurypterid or sea scorpion, for example. These creatures, which grew up to 8 feet long, were ancient relatives of modern scorpions and thrived in shallow, warm waters. They used their long pincers to capture prey, and their barbed tails delivered venomous stings that could paralyze a victim in seconds. Imagine being stung by one of these creatures, the venom coursing through your body as you drift helplessly, knowing that you were about to become prey for something much larger. The prehistoric oceans were also home to the ammonites, squid-like creatures that lived in coiled shells. While they might seem harmless compared to the monsters that roamed these waters, ammonites were still deadly in their own right. Their tentacles were equipped with hooks and suckers, allowing them to latch onto their prey and drag them into their sharp, beak-like mouths. Once caught, there was little chance of escape, as their powerful tentacles wrapped around their victims like a vice, pulling them into a slow, suffocating death. As you swim through the murky waters of this ancient world, you start to understand the true terror of the prehistoric oceans. There is no peace here, no safe haven. Every inch of these waters is filled with danger, from the massive predators that ruled the seas to the smaller venomous creatures that lurked in the shadows. And the worst part? You never know where the next threat is coming from. One moment, you're floating in silence. The next, something strikes from the deep, pulling you down into the blackness with no hope of return. The creatures of the prehistoric oceans didn't just live. They thrived in an environment so hostile, so dangerous, that it's hard to imagine how anything could survive. But they did. They adapted, evolved, and became the ultimate predators of their time. And as you surface from these ancient waters, gasping for breath, you realize that the ocean is far more terrifying than anything you could ever have imagined. This text continues to immerse the reader in the terrifying reality of prehistoric oceans, filled with vivid descriptions of the deadly creatures that once ruled the seas, without providing a final summary, maintaining suspense throughout. The sky above is a deep, endless expanse, a canvas of shifting colors, stretching from the first pale light of dawn to the fiery gold of sunset. To us, it's a place of beauty, filled with gentle breezes and birds soaring through the air. But imagine, for a moment, if the sky wasn't a symbol of peace. Imagine a world where the air itself was dangerous, a world where the very act of looking up could send a chill down your spine, because lurking in those high, distant clouds were monsters, silent, massive, and always hungry. Long before the age of man, before the dinosaurs claimed dominion over the land, there were creatures that roamed the skies, creatures whose wings cast shadows so vast they could eclipse the sun. They weren't the delicate birds we know today, or even the pterosaurs that often steal the spotlight in stories about ancient predators. No, these creatures were something else entirely, something older, something far more terrifying. Imagine, for a moment, standing on a windswept plain. There is no sound, save for the gentle rustle of the grass, and no movement in the sky but the slow drift of clouds. But then, a shadow passes over you. It's subtle at first, a trick of the light maybe. Then the shadow grows, a creeping darkness that stretches across the ground like a great hand, blotting out the light in an instant. You look up, and there, high above, something immense is circling. Its wingspan stretches wider than any bird you've ever seen, and its eyes, sharp, predatory, are locked on you. This is Quetzalcoatlus, the largest flying creature that ever existed. With a wingspan stretching up to 40 feet, it was as wide as a small aircraft, yet it moved with the grace of a bird of prey. It didn't just fly, it soared, effortlessly gliding on thermal updrafts, conserving energy while scanning the land below for anything unfortunate enough to catch its attention. And when it found its target, whether it was a small dinosaur or something larger, it would dive with deadly precision, its beak snapping shut with a force that could shatter bone. But Quetzalcoatlus wasn't alone. The skies of prehistory were filled with terrors that make even the most fearsome of modern birds look like mere playthings. Among these were the ancient Pterodaustro with its bizarre filter-feeding teeth and the terrifying Ornithocheirus, a predator with sharp, jagged jaws designed to snatch fish from the water with horrifying efficiency. Each of these creatures ruled their domain with an iron grip, the air their kingdom, the land and sea below their hunting ground.
It's easy to think of the sky as a safe place, a space without danger. But in the age of these creatures, there was no safety from above. Imagine living in constant fear of what might be watching from the clouds, knowing that at any moment, without warning, something could plummet from the heavens and snatch you away in an instant, your life extinguished before you even had time to scream. And while the sky was a place of terror, the land was no sanctuary either. The land, often seen as the realm of the dinosaurs, was home to creatures so nightmarish, so violent, that even the most feared predators of the Mesozoic era couldn't hold a candle to their ferocity. These were not the slow, lumbering giants we often imagine when we think of ancient life. No, these were the real monsters, the creatures that hunted with intelligence, with strategy, with a kind of ruthless efficiency that made them the true kings of their world. Take, for example, the Gorgonopsids. These prehistoric predators lived long before the dinosaurs ever appeared during the Permian period, and they were as terrifying as their name suggests. Their name, after all, comes from the Gorgons of Greek mythology, creatures so horrifying that merely looking at them could turn you to stone. And while the Gorgonopsids might not have had the supernatural powers of their mythological namesakes, they were just as deadly. Picture a creature the size of a modern lion, but with the build of a Komodo dragon, and jaws filled with dagger-like teeth, capable of slicing through flesh and bone with ease. These creatures were ambush predators, lying in wait for their prey to come too close before striking with lightning speed. Their sharp, saber-like canines weren't just for show. They were designed to kill quickly and efficiently. With one bite, they could pierce through the thickest hides, and once they had their prey, there was no escape. They were the apex predators of their time, feared by everything else that shared their habitat. And they weren't the only ones. The Permian period also gave rise to Dimetrodon, another fearsome predator that, despite being often mistaken for a dinosaur, was part of a completely different lineage. With its distinctive sail-like structure on its back and its powerful carnivorous jaws, Dimetrodon was a terror of the ancient landscapes. It stalked the wetlands and swamps, preying on amphibians, reptiles, and anything else that crossed its path. Dimetrodon was not a hunter of speed or stealth. It relied on raw power, brute strength, and the element of surprise. Fast forward a few million years and the era of the dinosaurs has begun. But even here, in the so-called Age of the Dinosaurs, there were creatures that made even the mighty Tyrannosaurus rex seem almost tame in comparison. Creatures like Deinosuchus, the terror crocodile, which was essentially a prehistoric crocodile on steroids. Deinosuchus grew up to 40 feet long, about the size of a modern school bus, and weighed several tons. It didn't just lurk in the water like its modern descendants. It actively hunted anything that came near the rivers and lakes it called home. Even large dinosaurs weren't safe from its enormous jaws, which could crush bone with ease. Deinosuchus was an ambush predator, hiding beneath the surface of the water, waiting for its prey to come close. And when it did, there was no escape. In an instant, Deinosuchus would lunge forward, its powerful tail propelling it with incredible speed, its jaws snapping shut around its victim with a bone-shattering crunch. Once caught, the prey would be dragged into the water, where it would be drowned and torn apart. But it wasn't just Deinosuchus that ruled the rivers and swamps. Other massive crocodile-like reptiles, such as Sarcosuchus or Super Croc, also prowled these ancient waters. Sarcosuchus was even larger than Deinosuchus, growing up to 50 feet long and possessing a skull nearly as long as a human is tall. These creatures were not just hunters. They were unstoppable forces of nature, capable of taking down prey many times their size. In their world, they were the ultimate predators, feared by everything that shared their domain. And it wasn't just the water dwellers or the land dwellers that made the ancient world a nightmare. There were also creatures that blurred the line between land and sea, beasts that could hunt both on land and in the water with equal ferocity. Take, for example, Spinosaurus, a massive theropod dinosaur that was unlike anything else that roamed the earth. With its long crocodile-like snout and its powerful paddle-like limbs, Spinosaurus was perfectly adapted for a life spent hunting in rivers and lakes, as well as stalking prey on land. Standing at over 50 feet long, Spinosaurus was larger than even the mighty Tyrannosaurus rex, and it was one of the most dangerous predators of its time. Its sail-like structure on its back may have helped regulate its body temperature, but it also gave the creature a menacing appearance, making it an unmistakable force to be reckoned with. When Spinosaurus hunted, it didn't just rely on brute strength. It used its keen sense of smell and its sharp eyesight to track prey, and when it attacked, it did so with terrifying precision. In the ancient world, survival wasn't just about being the biggest or the strongest. It was about adapting, evolving, and becoming the most efficient killer in your environment. And these creatures, the rulers of the land, the sea, and the sky, did just that. They were more than just animals. They were perfect predators, the ultimate hunters in a world that was as unforgiving as it was dangerous. The land was no sanctuary, the sea no refuge, and the sky offered no escape. Every inch of the ancient world was filled with danger, from the massive, predatory reptiles that stalked the rivers and swamps to the flying monsters that ruled the air. These creatures were the true nightmares of prehistory, the ones that made even the mighty dinosaurs look almost benign by comparison. And as you stand there in the quiet of the ancient landscape, you realize something unsettling. This world, this terrifying, dangerous place, isn't as far removed from ours as we'd like to think. The oceans still hold secrets, the skies still hide predators we've yet to discover, and the land, though tamed by humanity, still harbors echoes of those ancient beasts that once ruled with an iron claw. Perhaps somewhere deep beneath the waves, in the dark corners of the world we've yet to explore, some of these ancient monsters still linger, waiting for the right moment to rise again, to reclaim their throne as the rulers of Earth. And when they do, the sky, the sea, and the land will tremble once more under the weight of their power. The question is, will we be ready when they return?